When people talk about the Illuminati, they usually picture a shadowy group sitting around a table, smoking cigars, pulling strings that make the world dance like a puppet show. Every war, every market crash, every cultural shift, they say, is orchestrated by this hidden cabal. It's a picture that is both terrifying and strangely comforting. Terrifying because it makes the world seem rigged. Comforting because it suggests there's a single mastermind to blame. But the truth, as always, is more complex, more unsettling, and in some ways, more empowering. If you want to understand how power really works in the modern world, you have to let go of the fantasy of a single hidden council dictating every move. What exists instead are networks, incentives, and systems that make the powerful behave in ways that look coordinated, even when they aren't sitting in the same room. Take the example of global finance. People imagine a few families owning all the banks, but the reality is a tangled web of institutions, hedge funds, corporations, and governments all connected by money and debt. No one person decides when a recession hits or when a currency collapses, yet the choices of a handful of influential players, central bankers, corporate CEOs, large investors, ripple outward until millions feel the effects. It feels like coordination, but it's usually the result of shared incentives, not a grand conspiracy. They act in similar ways because they benefit from the same structures. They don't need to conspire to keep the game tilted in their favor. The rules of the game already do that. Think about politics. It's easy to believe elections are completely staged by some hidden Illuminati committee. But in truth, politicians operate inside vast networks of donors, lobbyists, think tanks, and media outlets. A candidate who doesn't align with the interests of these networks rarely gets far. Not because someone in a cloak and hood forbids it, but because money, influence, and attention flow toward those who already fit the mold. By the time a president or prime minister reaches office, they have been shaped by these forces for years. Again, it looks like a conspiracy, but it's closer to self-selection. Power rewards those who play by its unwritten rules. And yet, conspiracies do exist. Governments have staged coups. Corporations have hidden scandals. Intelligence agencies have lied to the public. The Gulf of Tonkin, Watergate, MK Ultra, corporate cartels fixing prices. History is full of real conspiracies. But here's the distinction. Those conspiracies were specific, limited, and eventually exposed. They were not the all-encompassing puppet master narratives that conspiracy culture attaches to the Illuminati. Believing in one omnipotent cabal blinds you to the real, provable manipulations happening right in front of you. If you want to see how influence really works, follow the money and follow the networks. Look at who sits on the boards of the world's largest corporations. Notice how the same names appear across industries: banking, energy, media, technology. Look at the revolving door between government regulators and the industries they are supposed to oversee. Notice how often politicians retire into consulting firms, or how lobbyists write the very laws that lawmakers vote on. This is not a single cabal. It is a culture of elites whose interests overlap so much that they rarely need to meet in secret to align their agendas. They already share the same worldview, the same incentives, the same desire to maintain the system that benefits them. So why does the idea of a single Illuminati pulling strings persist? Because it's simpler. It reduces a messy, chaotic system into a story. And humans love stories. But clinging to the wrong story robs you of power. If you think a handful of hooded figures are secretly controlling everything, you feel helpless. What could you possibly do against that? But if you see that power operates through networks and incentives, you start to see pressure points. You can vote differently, consume differently, speak differently, organize differently. You can expose real corruption instead of chasing shadows. The real danger of the Illuminati myth is that it distracts from real collusion. A secret meeting at a retreat of billionaires is not proof of world domination, but it is proof of how elites coordinate. They don't need to conspire in secret to shape global trends. They just need access, resources, and aligned interests. They attend forums like Davos or the G7. They fund research and think tanks that produce the talking points governments use. They hire the best lobbyists to bend policy. And in the digital age, they own the platforms that shape your attention and your beliefs. This is the true puppet show. Not a hidden cabal, but an open system of influence that thrives on complexity and distraction. The more you obsess over triangles and owls, the less you notice the very public deals that affect your life. And yet, there's empowerment in seeing this clearly. Because once you strip away the fantasy of omnipotent conspirators, you can see the actual levers of power. Who funds what? Who benefits from what? Who pays for what? But here's the paradox. The fantasy persists because it feels truer than reality. When you see billionaires flying to private islands, politicians repeating the same lines, media outlets pushing identical stories, it feels scripted. And in a way, it is. Not scripted by a secret order, but scripted by systems of profit, fear, and control that all push in the same direction. Systems don't need a mastermind, they just need participants. And every elite, whether banker, politician, or celebrity, knows how to play their part. That's the real Illuminati. Not a secret club of hooded magicians, but a culture of influence that rewards conformity, punishes dissent, and sustains itself without needing a conspiracy. That is more frightening and more freeing than any secret society. Because if the Illuminati were real and all-powerful, you would have no chance. But if power is a system, you have choices. You can learn to read the incentives, disrupt the patterns, and refuse to play the role they've scripted for you. The truth is that the Illuminati story survives because it mirrors something deeper. It's easier to picture a secret cabal than to face the mess of complex systems. It's easier to see hidden masters than to admit that we ourselves participate in the system every day. We buy, we click, we consume, we vote, we obey. We keep the pyramid standing, even when no one forces us to. So who actually pulls the strings? Not an invisible council in the shadows. The strings are pulled by networks of influence, by incentives that shape behavior, by cultures of secrecy that exclude you from their table. And sometimes by you, through the choices you make, the attention you give, the voices you amplify. That's not as cinematic as a hooded cabal, but it's real. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The Illuminati myth asks you to fear. The reality asks you to wake up.